and welcome to Talk This.
It's dangerous to podcast alone.
I'm gonna climb up that cliff whether you want me to or not, host Madelyn.
I would walk 1,000 miles, host Emma.
And thank you for tuning in to this week's show. It's Emma's side quest. Emma side quest time. So Emma, what are we talking about this week?
This week, we're talking about traversal in games.
Or just in general.
Sure, in general, no. We've talked about various modes of traversal in games before, like we did our horses episode, but we haven't just talked about it generally.
Yeah, I think, did I do a jumping in games?
Yes, we've definitely done jumping in games, too.
Yeah.
People do, what I did learn from this is people do like jumping.
It feels exciting.
Yeah.
On a personal note, how often do I jump in the real world at all?
Not much.
Particularly for, I jump for joy occasionally. But as a means... Sure.
I don't think I jump for joy.
I think I probably jump for joy more often than I jump with the goal of covering distance.
I see.
Now, I will say recently, and then we can talk about traversal in games, I was going to pick up takeout dinner sometime in the past month during a period in which it was pouring rain. I had already gotten soaked coming back from the train, so I was just like, whatever, let's do it. And wow, the distance that I as a human being can jump over puddles is much less than I would think of it in my mind or from games.
Sure. You're maybe not committing to it hard enough.
That's true. Like, if I were Nathan Drake or any of the assassins of the Creed, maybe I would be putting a little more oomph behind my jump than me carrying my tofu pad thai.
Yeah. I mostly think about how many broken ribs they must have jumping and like grabbing onto ledges.
I did read a listicle that was parkour games ranked based on how likely I am to break my ankle.
Mm-hmm.
Which they had Super Mario as the top pick, which haha. But I felt like was dodging the question at hand.
Yeah, fair. Well, anyway, this was partly inspired because of the Final Fantasy VII Revelation trailer at Jeff's gamer convention.
GGC.
Where they showed off the big airship that you will get, as well as the fact that you can parachute out of it to the ground. And that just got me thinking about, like, how you traverse various open worlds, and games in general, and how difficult that can be to make fun.
Do you think that particular skydiving is more inspired by Tears of the Kingdom or by Fortnite?
It's more Fortnite-y.
Mm-hmm.
What it's actually inspired by is, no, we will not land this ship anywhere. Are you freaking kidding
Yeah.
me? No, we will not figure that out. Thanks. Jump out of it, please. That's what it's inspired by. But it's more Fortnite-y than it is, because it's full-on parachutes. It's not like you're not holding on to a glider. So
fair enough. You call out that traversal is hard, which what article was I reading this in? Somebody pointed out that, this is sort of a uniquely game problem, the need to get from point A to point B and like also see that happen. In a movie or in a television show or in basically anything, we don't see people traveling unless that's really the point of what's happening or something important happens while they're traveling or something like that, because it's boring.
Yeah.
Anyone who has ever traveled anywhere can tell you that traveling from point A to point B is mostly boring, no matter what you do.
Yeah, and even then, like in road trip movies, for example, right? Like where the traveling is the point. You aren't watching the time in between like conversations where people are just kind of staring out the window for like 15 minutes. You could probably make a movie like that, like a one shotter for like a road trip, like an experimental film sort of thing. But,
yeah, like heavy emphasis on the experimental film there for sure.
But there's this secret technique of editing that is used to get to like the key points of the road trip. I feel like anytime you see like anyone fully traverse from point A to point B in like a movie is when there's like urgency, right? Like they have to get somewhere or they're running away from something, or if they're moving fast, we are willing to watch them fully go from point A to point B.
Which honestly tracks with what we're willing to be excited by in games for the most part too.
Yeah. But yeah, it's difficult in games because you can't. I mean, I guess fast travel is your cut in a movie in a way.
Yeah.
But if you are just going to a place, and usually they prefer to make you go to a place that you haven't been before, and then you unlock the fast travel, right?
Yeah.
There's like this whole space in between like interest points where interesting things aren't happening. And so you can't just like be like, well, what if interesting things happened every 2 steps? Because that doesn't work either.
Yeah.
Really.
Your game would have to be much, I mean, even then this wouldn't work. But games are too big now for that to even vaguely work.
I mean, but the where I'm using interesting there is like towns or puzzles or like things to do. There are games that I do think solve this by making every 2 steps something interesting happens, like Death Stranding, for instance. But you can't just be like in Breath of the Wild, like every 2 steps, like there's a Korok or a fight, or like there just has to be times where there's just nothing and you're going from place to place.
Yeah.
And that's tough because that's not going to be anybody's favorite part of the game. Probably.
Except in rare cases.
Yeah. And so looking at, games that I consider to have good traversal or other people consider to have good traversal, I do feel like you have to like place it at various extremes, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like Final Fantasy 15, one of the main methods of traversal is your car. And you can drive it yourself if you so choose, but most of the time you're probably letting Ignis, one of the members of your party, drive for you. And like that just means that you don't do anything for like 5 minutes while he's driving. You watch the bros in the car do various animations, like they do various like road trip things, and maybe you check your phone and you can turn on some cool tunes on the car, but you're literally not doing anything. You can put the controller down and Ignis will get the car to where you want to go. So there's like that in the spectrum that I think works. Right? And then there's...
Right. And in that game, you're, hanging out with your buddies.
Yeah.
Right? So I do think that there's a category of, I mean, your mileage may vary, I guess, literally, on how successful this is from game to game. But if traversal is basically being used as a, hey, let's have some low-key time to hang out with the gang and put in some flavor dialogue here, that can be a successful way to do it, to cover we're moving from place to place, but we're still sort of rewarding you with something.
The recent Like a Dragons, the Hawaii ones, also let you do this because you could set your segue on auto. And it would take you there. And you'd occasionally have to steer it away from punks if you didn't want to get in a fight. But it would essentially just take you where you wanted to go. You could take a break for a minute. And then there's the
battery system there, stupid.
Yeah, except for charging your battery.
Anytime that a game where
it's just kind of pointless. So I never ran out of battery. So
I mean, I did like once every 3 chapters.
Oh, I just
like
charged every time I was near one of those things. So.
Oh, well, how responsible are you? I did not do that. No, it's any game that is creating a system that's like, it's not fast travel, but it's you're moving faster. But there's a stamina or gas or whatever component. Dumb in the year 2026. What are we doing? Unless the stamina is about like climbing, or unless it's a genuine part of the experience. If it's just like, I'm punishing you for wanting to get from point A to point B faster, that sucks.
And that takes me, I think, to the other end of the spectrum of like the traversal itself is like sort of a main mechanic and involves more button inputs and focus from you than just holding the left analog stick forward. So this stuff like Death Stranding, where you have to balance yourself, build tools to get you from one place to the other, use other people's tools, so on and so forth. Baby steps, the very extreme example of this, where you have to control Nate's legs manually to get him to walk. And even stuff like, we can talk about like sailing, but like having to adjust the sail or the heading occasionally, I feel like makes traversal more interesting than like the sailing that's in Pirate Yakuza, where you're just holding the left analog stick forward. If you're only holding the left analog stick forward, you probably have an unsuccessful traversal system, is what I'm saying.
Or at least a nothing traversal system. To be fair, not every game has to be everything. And it's fine in most whatever games for it just to be like, you run from point A to point B. And as long as that's not too long and not too onerous and not too annoying, like, that's okay. There might be other things that can be happening in that period. Again, like if you're being rewarded with your party members chatting with you, if the game is beautiful enough that there's things to look at. Okami didn't come immediately to mind for me of like game with great traversal, but when I saw it in a Reddit thread, I was like, oh yeah, like your wolf goddess is so beautiful with the flowers at full speed running that you kind of don't want to break that because the art of the run is so beautiful, which actually I thought was like kind of a weird, unique example that I can't think of something that is quite analogous to that in my gameplay experience. So there are other ways to reward the player when the traversal mechanic is just like analog stick forward, but it better not take too long.
Yeah. Or, I was reading a transcript of an Escapist video, an old one, I guess. I think the Escapist staff is like Second Wind now, is the place they formed. But it was talking about like, there's a lot of these, like it was talking about like Baldur's Gate 3. It's pretty plodding and sometimes frustrating to get your party to do what you want them to, which I do remember experiencing when like someone just would not jump across a gap that everybody else did. But a lot of that game is about experiencing, like exploring and noticing little things in the environment. And if you're going too fast, if you had like a motorbike in Baldur's Gate 3, you probably would miss a lot of things. And so in that way, the kind of plodding traversal is feeding into what is or at least not diminishing what's interesting about that game, because it's not just like encouraging you to skip it in a way that like faster traversal systems might.
Yeah, it's a easily overlooked pacing tool. I guess literally. I love a pun, but I'm throwing out a lot of unintentional ones already this week.
Yeah.
But of course, if the point of your traversal is to notice things in the environment, no one is ever going to call that out as like, wow, what a smart use of walking.
Yeah.
They're actually going to say, wow, the environment's so beautiful. Wow, the environmental storytelling. Wow, the whatever.
Or they'll say walking simulator.
Yeah. Do you think we can reevaluate that term now that things like Baby Steps and Death Stranding are out there and are like actually walking simulators?
I don't really hear, to be honest, I don't really see walking simulator being thrown around as a pejorative anymore, just because, I mean, they have woke now.
Correct. Woking simulator.
Woking simulator. That's pretty good. If
Yeah,
I
I
was
know.
a grifter, I would start using woking simulator.
It's pretty hot, not gonna lie. That was a pretty spicy thing to pull out of the hat there. Woking simulator, I expect to see on the Gamosphere.
But that's essentially how people used to use walking simulator,
No, I know.
in the same way that they use woke now. But woke is shorter and catchier. So
interesting though. I mean, again, I'm not taking the term walking simulator at face value here, to be clear. I understand that it's just this is a game for women who don't want to sleep with me kind of energy.
I mean,
but
the walking simulator, it is a genre. It's just
no. I know.
Used in a very specific way.
I know. I'm just saying. I understand that the term is not actually really used as a genuine description of the game, right? And my point being, it's interesting that a walking simulator, actually, the walking is so much the least important part of, and has to be, of those games. If a walking simulator actually has walking that you have to pay attention to, it's probably not really a walking simulator.
And even like a lot of these tend to be first person, the ones that you think of. And even trying to like simulate more realistic walking like action games might do with like head movement.
Yeah.
They usually don't do that. It's usually just a straightforward camera. Thank you. Everybody who adds head bop to their game should just not add it, actually.
We just don't need that.
They should just take it out so that I have like a 50-50 shot of not of playing it without vomiting.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's not even like attempting to like try to ape the feeling of walking. It's just like, yeah, you have to move around the space. It's about the space, and then you have to move around in order to experience the space.
But to circle back to actual walking simulators, Death Stranding and Baby Steps. Interesting to me. So you mentioned those as examples of traversal that people notice. And I think that that's like one side of this. You said there's two ends of the spectrum here, right? We've got like, I'm doing nothing, I'm vibing in the car. And then we've got Baby Steps. But I actually think there's kind of a branch on the Baby Steps end of traversal we notice and like. So there's it's frictiony and hard, and the frictiony and hardness of it is kind of the point of the gameplay, right? So that's Death Stranding, where you're gonna fall over and make the baby cry, or Baby Steps, where you're gonna fall over and make me cry.
Yeah.
Or even things like, to a certain extent, you could consider very challenging platformers or something like that in that world, although obviously very different.
I think probably also like the more in-depth like truck simulators and flight simulators, where you have to actually do all the stuff in the vehicle to get.
Yeah, I want to talk about vehicles separately in a minute, because man, when do you ever? You talked about sailing, like when do you ever sail like someone would sail? Almost never.
Well, you can't really if you're on like a real boat, because there'd be multiple people doing multiple things, and that's hard to manage other than being the person ordering the people to do it. I guess you could do, but
a multiplayer sailing sim would be kind of neat.
Well, there is I take that back. There is Sea of Thieves,
right,
where you do have to more cooperate to sail your ship a little more.
Yeah. Okay, I'll talk about this now then. Vehicles are usually just go fast.
Yeah. There's
so little particularly interesting or nuanced vehicle piloting.
Yeah.
Unless it's, literally truck simulator, or like when does your car ever have, not that I understand all cars are automatics now. I don't know how to drive stick either, whatever. But like what game has ever had a car that has a stick shift, right?
Yeah.
not any game where the car is just, go fast, go fast.
Yeah.
Or we've talked about this, I think, many times on the show before. I remember at least talking about it once, probably in the context of The Last of Us. But horses are never animals.
Yeah.
You become the horse when you're on the horse in the vast majority of games.
Yeah. With very few exceptions. I still haven't, like, done Shadow of the Colossus myself, but I know that that's one horse where it's like the horse is kind of the horse.
Yeah.
In that one. And we obviously talked in depth about Red Dead's horses before.
Which gets called out as an example of kind of bad traversal. Although also one that...
The horse girls, though.
Yeah, on the flip side, the horse girls are getting what they want.
Yeah.
But it is crazy to... I read so many things about this that I'm forgetting where things came from. But there's one of the videos I watched was like, this game is like 50% kind of boring horseback riding. Which doesn't feel right when you think about what this game is actually about.
I mean, my understanding of Red Dead 2, at least, is that it's about riding your horse around and shaving and getting a drink. I think that's what it's about. Story? I don't know about that,
Anyway, to circle back to my two-pronged interesting traversal, we've got, it's hard. My character barely knows how to walk. It takes 20 buttons to walk.
Mm-hmm.
And then on the other end of the prong, we have, I can fly or do crazy parkour.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel cool as heck.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm flowing and it's floaty, but not too floaty.
And I think that is actually the method of traversal. I mean, that's more common to begin with. But like the IGN had like I don't really know how they ranked this, but they did have like a 30 top best games with traversal. And it was mostly like things where you're going fast and like getting into like a smooth groove, and then the like 3 Kojima games that are on there as like exceptions.
Yeah.
But yes, the Spider-Man yes. Effect.
Exactly. No, basically they're all variations on Spider-Man.
Mm-hmm.
Whether or not they came out before or after the Spider-Man game, they are pretty much all web swinging, whether or not you have an actual web.
Yeah. So yeah, there's Spider-Man's web swinging, which was much ado was made of when that game came out, and they've continued to iterate and improve on across games. People liked swinging on the web in Marvel Spider-Man.
And it's notable, right, that, I mean, this is going to sound like the most obvious thing in the world, but because Spider-Man is an existing IP where there are so many iconic movie moments or whatever where Spider-Man is swinging on the web, and there's so many people who grew up reading the comics, or now I guess grew up watching Tom Holland, Mr. Zendaya, swinging, that they couldn't afford that traversal to be anything less than perfect.
Yeah.
Basically. That's a game where even though, like, theoretically you'd say, oh, it's like a superhero action game, the getting from point A to point B wouldn't normally be the point. With Spider-Man, it's gotta be the point.
There's also various parkour games, Mirror's Edge, Dying Light, those types of things that are about, smoothly navigating the environment in the way that parkour people do. There's Gravity Rush, which is you can essentially, in a localized area around you, change the flow of gravity and essentially send yourself in various directions, like into the sky, or you just sort of fall however you want to, essentially. Which does create very funny moments when you're standing around NPCs that get caught in the localized gravity shift with you. Don't worry about that. They're fine, probably, yeah. I think.
No big deal. You switched gravity so deftly, like, right at the end that they landed.
Yeah, that's what happens. That one also very fun, but in the same sort of Spider-Man-y way, just like with a more of a momentum, even stronger momentum system. You have stuff like the Far Cry 3, you have like a wingsuit, like you can launch yourself in the air whenever and like fly around on your wingsuit. And in later games you get like rockets you can stick onto things so you can fly your car into the air if you want to. Again, like very much like I want to be flying and soaring in the sky, please type games.
And that's like almost the extent of what we like. Or almost the extent of creative traversal. And to be fair, like, what else is there? It's a hard kind of thing. I mean, you pulled and I saw separately too. There's plenty of threads online and forums on Reddit, whatever, people saying, why is there so much boring walking from place to place, whatever. And, you said in the notes, like, actually there's not really any good solutions in this whole thread.
Yeah. And sometimes the Redditors hit on something where you're like, that's interesting. And this one, it was like, yeah, okay.
Yeah. But it points to the, like, if this was easy to figure out, if there were obvious creative ideas that balance the need for the many competing needs of getting from place to place and there being time between things and how much possible stuff can there be in games and whatever, then people would be doing it.
Yeah.
Because it's in every game.
Yeah.
Obviously one thing I think we have not yet talked about is people like climbing things. Even though the climbing things mechanic is also mostly push left stick.
Yeah. Yeah, I didn't even think about like the amount of climbing games that have come out recently. Too.
No, there are some very climbing focused games that have slightly more robust, you're picking the rocks, you're doing the climb kind of mechanics. But there's also a ton of Breath of the Wild, or even to go further back, a ton of Assassin's Creed, just like tall thing, push up, hope you make it. And then, importantly, jump down at the end.
Yeah. It is interesting that, I like to do that in video games too. But I would not do that in real life.
Not ever. Climb up, maybe.
I've done, I guess, a zip line. That's the closest I've gotten to, like, climb up, jump down.
Yeah.
Type thing. And the closest I'll ever get, if we're being honest.
And, like, to be fair, climb up, climb down sucks.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
You climb up, you're tired, and then you go down.
Yeah.
So I'm there with you, Altair. Like, let's eagle dive.
Yeah.
Or I'm there with you, a short hike kid. Let's eagle dive.
Yeah. I don't know what kind of bird she's supposed to be, actually. Yeah. Not an eagle.
I
like
know.
A crow
that was a joke.
I know.
But yes, that is another traversal thing that is that we do a lot in games, and we do never, ever, ever anything like it.
Well, there are certainly people who like doing that in real life. Can say that skiing is this also.
Yeah.
I liked sledding as a kid.
Yep.
That's kind of this. I would roll down hills. It's the jumping part, I think.
Yeah.
I understand sliding down, I think.
Well, at least one article that I read suggested that perhaps all games would be better with sliding.
Okay.
Like, that all games would be better with the ability to run and then slide.
Sure.
Which I think is a compelling argument. I think it's a nice counterpoint to the agreed upon talk disposition that all games should have skateboards.
Yeah. Also true. And, I do like being in the desert in Nier Automata, sliding down the sand dunes.
Yes.
It's pretty good.
Correct.
So I see the point there. I also think all games should just have a jump button, regardless of if they need it or not.
I'm going to push back on that in
Okay.
a traversal way.
You push back against my joy jumping.
So jumping for joy button, maybe. However, so players want to do things. This is from a game developer article that I read. I learned from game developer that players want to do things. But basically it was about traversal level design principles. And a lot of like very basic things here of like, hey, the path should never end up being a 180-degree turn. Because players don't have peripheral vision. They just won't know it's there.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of how do we design for traversal? Or players, even if they're, have the same movement mechanics that they have anywhere else, they like doing it up high.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if you can have them walk on a blimp or run on a blimp, they'll like that.
True.
Which is real. But this article says, quote, if the player can climb on it or perform any other traversal move, it needs to be crystal clear that it is a traversal path. If it looks like you can traverse something, players will try. And so I think the trouble with every game having a jump button, as fun as it is to be able to like jump your character around, is that the moment that you introduce that jumping is possible, players will, and I've done this in Skyrim. This is Skyrim to a T. This is what I like about traversal in Skyrim, is you could just try to jump up anything, and like 2/3 of the time you could probably make it happen if you just keep trying.
Yeah.
And so I think if you always give players a jump button, as much as I enjoy the joyful implications of that, you would open up to all of us dumb people that are like, well, surely now I can jump on this thing. Surely now I can jump up this surface that is not intended to be jumped upon. You give players too many ideas.
How about a skip button?
Sure. Might not be, like, personality appropriate for all.
Doesn't matter.
Fair enough.
No, it does. I get it. But not enough games with a skip feature, I'll say.
I cannot argue with that. Another, I will say, something that I didn't even realize that I feel like doesn't exist too much in games until I saw some people talking about Dishonored and its blink mechanic. There's less teleportation than you would think.
I imagine it's tough.
Yeah, it is tough. It would be tough in the
I wonder,
Z sense.
I wonder if it's difficult to get. I mean, maybe in this gen it wouldn't be as hard, but I wonder if it was difficult to like load a character one place and then load them another place instantly.
Probably. And I do hate the teleporting character in WarioWare, and the one that I have. It's a pain.
Yeah, there's a warp staff in Fire Emblem.
That's true.
And a rescue staff.
That's true.
That's teleporting.
I wouldn't think of that so much as traversal.
It's kind of traversal. It's
in the sense of those games, sure, yes. But
the traversal in a tactics game is like, how can I get this character to move farther than they should be able to, essentially.
That's true.
And increasing a character's move can be quite useful in those games.
Yeah. No, I think if a game could get... I actually think there's not a lot of teleportation because it would be hard to direct.
Yeah, that's true too.
Like, it requires a decent amount of inputs from the player in a way that is not consistent with what would be fun about teleportation.
To throw it back to Final Fantasy 15, famously, Noct has his warp strike. The coolest concept in the not very super interesting combat of Final Fantasy 15, where he throws his sword and then instantly teleports to where his sword is, essentially.
See, that's kind of neat.
And that does solve the problem of directing it, because it's not entirely like freeform. Like you're essentially like throwing your boomerang, and then you go where you've thrown it, essentially.
Yeah, we have established archery and throwing mechanics that could be used.
Yeah. Anyway, I'm really hoping that in Revelation, since I was talking about 15 again, I'm really hoping that they let me just be like, Sid, steer. They probably won't, though.
They were content to let me do a lot of running around in the second one.
The Rebirth did have a lot of varied traversal mechanics. Because in every region that you had your own unique chocobo that had its own like gimmick for the region based on the region's terrain. So you had the wind gliding chocobo, the water spurting chocobo, the mushroom bouncing chocobo, so on and so forth.
Well, yeah, it's interesting to think about how traversal mechanics guide level design, or vice versa, right?
Yeah.
I think you see a little bit less of this kind of doling out of abilities these days in big games than you used to, but the designing for... Because you don't have to a certain extent, because the world can be so big that you don't have to be like, oh, we need new places for the players to go, but we can't make a whole new world, right? Mm-hmm. The ability to say, okay, the player has unlocked double jump. The player has unlocked whatever, climbing. The player has unlocked being able to throw the rope or glide or whatever it is, right? Is an interesting way to... traversal as a means of gating is something that comes up a lot in these articles.
Yeah, that's very Metroidvania, right?
Right, exactly.
You get new traversal mechanics, essentially, in order to access new areas of the map. Sometimes combat mechanics, too, but they open up new routes for you in some way. Apparently the way it's going to work in Revelation is you just have the one chocobo, and it will gradually learn new traversal techniques, which feels nice. Kind of Metroidvania of them, which will be interesting.
In a world that big, I have no desire to go back. I just want to go to a new area where there are new things I can do.
They've also said that, like, once you get your airship, you can go pretty much anywhere on the map. Mm-hmm. It's just whether the enemies in that area will be
too hard,
prohibitively difficult for you.
That's
which
cool.
Again, interesting approach. We will see.
Yeah.
Scary. Every time Hamaguchi says something new about game, I go, scary.
Yeah, scary. I mean, realistic, I guess. Good for them.
Yeah. But I mean, I did Rebirth had fast travel, and I did make use of its fast travel. Or it did eventually, at least.
Eventually, I think.
I think you could fast travel in a region, and then once you had Sid, you could go back.
Yeah.
But I'm hoping that the using the airship and the parachuting and the chocobo and the whatever, like having different things to do in different places in what seems to be a semi-non-linear structure will make it so I feel like I don't need to fast travel that much in Revelation. That's my hope for it. We'll see.
Well, let me ask you a controversial question.
Sure.
If we made fast travel illegal, would games be better or worse?
It's hard. I mean, they'd be different.
Thanks.
It's hard to say. I'm not I know there are people out there who really don't like huge open world games, and I don't play a ton of them, but I'm not like inherently against huge open world games, right? And in some ways, like, even if you have made interesting ways to traverse, at some point someone's just going to be like, I forgot something 2 towns over. I'm just going to pop back real quick using the fast travel system, and that's going to be easier and more fun for me than making my whole way back by foot, right? But I do think that fast travel can be used as a band-aid sometimes, rather than thinking about, like, okay, how we're gonna have fast travel, but, like, how do we try and make the player not use it? Like, even Spider-Man has fast travel. You can use the subway in Spider-Man if you would like to.
Ironic fast travel service, but yeah.
but they don't really, people don't really do that, right? Because the swinging is fun, right? And you can, happen across little things you can do in the world all the time while you're going, right? So, like, that has fast travel for when you need it, but you're incentivized not to by the traversal mechanics and the way that the world is set up, right? And I think sometimes open world games don't think about that and are just like, yeah, they can just sort of hop back if they need to. I'm not going to think about, like, what would make them want to return or would make the returning, like, more or less interesting, right? Yeah, so it's hard to say. I don't necessarily think fast travel should be banned, but it could be used more judiciously.
I hear that. I just think to a certain extent, well, on one hand, would not having fast travel mean that games were a little bit denser and there were fewer games that were just, like, big for the sake of being big? Probably. And that might be a good thing for what I like about playing video games.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll put that on the side of, if it incentivized fewer games, I don't know. I wouldn't have minded Final Fantasy VII Rebirth being a little less big. Like, there wasn't so much interesting to discover in some of those big open areas that I felt so excited to jump around on my chocobo. So I'll say that. But on the other hand, I don't think it's necessarily fair to expect that every game wants to be about how you're moving from place to place, right? It's definitely not fair to expect every game to be Spider-Man, and I mean that in the broad Spider-Man sense. And it's also definitely not fair to expect every game to pack every moment, as you've said, with things to find or things to hear or things to whatever. That's really only feasible if it's of a certain size.
And also, just, like, for a pacing reason, that's kind of exhausting.
Yep.
If you're trying to walk from one place to another and there's, like, 20 points of interest in between those.
Yeah.
Right.
No, there needs to be an ebb and a flow, both because we all want to have some time to check our cell phones now, right? Yeah. And but just
we've lost the loading screen, the all-important loading screen.
Yes, because there is no longer a loading screen, we have to have walking around loading screens.
Yeah.
That's important. And, sometimes it's important, you mentioned in Shadow of the Colossus that, like, having that time to have what you're doing sink in.
Yeah, if it just if that game just teleported you from Colossus to Colossus.
Yeah, would not be the right same feeling.
Game. Yeah.
So there is an importance to that downtime, and there is an importance to that I'm going through a bunch of boring, ugly area, and then I come out on the vista, right?
Yeah.
There's rewards to there being downtime. That's just, sometimes the slog is part of it.
I mean, I would be very curious to see a game that tried to be, like, sort of a sprawling RPG in story that just, like, cut out the travel part. Or at least, like, didn't make you walk from place to place. Like, we're in the city, you're walking around the city, you doing the things that are in the story events that are in the city. We've got to go to this next city. We cut to the camping scene. We cut to the next city. We're walking around the city, doing the city. And because I do feel like
a more cinematically edited sort of traditional RPG.
Yeah. Like, I do feel like it would kind of lose something, right, of its character.
I'd be interested to see. On the other hand, all of that traveling really in an RPG sense really comes from its like D&D roots, right? The traveling is sort of fun when, I mean, like we said, when it's you and your buddies and you've got your beer and your pizza and like you're making your dungeon master friend play the random troll and your characters are all chattering, right?
Yeah.
Like that's fun when it's around a table with people. And so we've carried over that pacing, and that pacing is necessary when it's around a table with people. You can't be in a battle all the time. D&D battling takes like 20 years.
Yeah.
So that's necessary, and because the role playing happens there. But interesting to think about, we've kind of carried that pacing over, even though that's not what this is at all.
Yeah.
However, on the other hand, getting back to fast travel, boy, it's not fair to expect games where players can go anywhere pretty much to be able to predict enough where players will want to go. It's one thing to say, well, you really shouldn't have fast travel if the game is pointing you in a relatively linear direction, right? It doesn't really make sense to be able to go way back because, there's nothing to do there. If you really want to do that, you should have to do it because it's not what the game expects. But now, it doesn't really feel fair to have players feel frustrated with what you've created because they read on game facts that they forgot something and they have to go back for it.
Yeah.
Right. Like, it creates a friction for the player that does not give them a fair assessment of your game because they're not playing it really in the way you would intend, but you can't limit the way players play anymore. They expect the world to be open. So, a challenge on all sides. And also, you can't predict if they're a game reviewer with all the time in the... Well, you can't predict if they're a college student with all the time in the world to play the game and run around and take their time and wanting the game to last as long as possible, or if they're a game reviewer under the gun to get the review out, or if they're a mom who wants to finish the game.
Yeah. Rest in peace, game reviewers, when September comes.
Is it gonna come out?
No, I just mean the 400 games that are releasing all on the same day in September. Do you mean is GTA 6?
I meant GTA, but
yeah, it would be extremely funny for it to delay again. But all I've heard is pretty positive reports that it's going to hit its November release date. But we'll see.
I hope it delays again.
I hope it delays like in October after it's too late.
Yeah.
Too late for anyone to change anything.
I hope it never comes out. They can't totally dismantle the game industry until that comes out.
Right. True.
Like, they can't stop making consoles until that game comes out. So hopefully it never comes out.
Yeah, we'll see.
Yeah.
Any last things to say about traversal?
Something that I think most games do get right is it's bad when the speed that you walk is bad.
Yeah.
Or it's bad when you aren't allowed to run until a third of the way through the game.
Sure.
And I feel glad that we've decided that that's not something we're doing anymore.
Yeah. Yes, my 2 tips for people designing traversals. If you have a mission in your game where you have to accompany an NPC, either the walking or running speed should be relatively correct to match the NPC that you're accompanying.
Yes.
Rather than the NPC moving exactly in the middle of those 2 speeds. And also, if your only traversal ever is just moving the L stick button forward, just think about it.
Yeah.
Maybe it is right, but just think about it. Those are my tips.
I like it.
And also, let me tap to toggle sprinting.
Yes.
And not hold.
Key.
Or make it an option.
It's very important.
But pretty good. Yeah.
Well, on that note, Listeners, thanks for tuning in to another episode of Talk This.
It's dangerous to podcast alone.
What is your favorite way of moving around in a game? Is it walking? Is it running? Is it riding a horse? Is it steering a ship? Is it turning into other animals? We didn't talk about Chia. I didn't do that much playing around with like the Chia transforming into other animals thing. But transformations, also an underutilized movement thing.
I did like the raft in Chia. I remember that.
Yes. Should more games have realistic sailing mechanics? Should more games basically be Spider-Man? Should more games make you realize how you don't really, think about walking and how it works, but you would have to if you were mapping it to buttons? Should anyone other than Kojima make games that aren't Spider-Man? Traversal. How much downtime do you need walking around in between important events? If you have thoughts about this, just in life, not in games. If you have thoughts about this or anything else we talked about this week, hit us up on social media. We're on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and Blue Sky at Talk This Podcast. You can also visit our website, www.talkthispodcast.com, where you can read all about the show, check out the games in the hat, and read our blog. But most importantly, if you enjoy the show, you ought to subscribe. We're on Apple Podcasts, YouTube Podcasts, TuneIn, Spotify, Pandora Podcasts, online in the app, Overcast, Pocket Casts, wherever you can find podcasts. Mosey on over and subscribe to Talk This so you never miss an episode on Sundays. In 2 weeks, it's 6 weeks in gaming again.
Mm-hmm.
But Emma, remind the people what we're talking about next week.
I believe next week our old game was Pandora's Tower.
I believe that's correct.
And our new game was Unfair Flips.
So look forward to those two. Run, don't walk. To listen to those episodes.
Do a cool, whatever the special Mario combination of jumps is that makes you launch forward.
Or break your ankle, per the parkour article.
Yeah, or that.
Well, that's it for this week's show. Thanks for tuning in. Emma, sign us off.
This week, I hope that all your improv parkour moments go off without a hitch.